The Eldari arrived in silence, their ship sleek and ethereal descending upon Earth with a grace that made the very air around them shimmer. They came with no weapons, no armies, only a promise. They called it a gift, a way to elevate humanity to the next stage of evolution, something they had done for countless species across the stars. Their purpose was simple: to help Earth's people reach their true potential, and in doing so secure peace across the galaxy. The humans watched with awe as the Eldari offered their technology, a procedure that would enhance the very nature of their biology, a procedure that would unlock untapped reservoirs of strength, intellect, and endurance that they never knew existed. It sounded like the stuff of dreams, like something from a fable. But the Eldari were no ordinary race. They had shaped the galaxy for millennia. Their word was trusted, their gift seen as a blessing. And for the first time, humanity had the chance to join that legacy. But not everyone was convinced. There were whispers on Earth. Some questioned why the Eldari had chosen them, why their species, why now. Others feared the unknown. Too many unanswered questions remained about the true cost of the gift, and whether it was given freely or with a hidden price. Yet the lure of such power was undeniable, and soon thousands of humans from across the world volunteered to undergo the procedure. Those first volunteers were the brave ones who would take the first step towards a new future. Each one felt the rush of something beyond their wildest imaginations. Their bodies began to transform, muscles grew stronger, their minds expanded. They could calculate vast sums in seconds, solve puzzles that would take others years to even comprehend, and each day they felt themselves growing more in tune with the universe around them. With every passing hour, they became more than human. They became something else, something greater. The first few months were nothing short of miraculous. Earth seemed to blossom under the effects of the enhancement. Nations set aside old grudges. Technology advanced at a rate never before seen. Diseases were eradicated, cures were discovered, and people flourished in ways that defied all expectations. The Eldari watched with satisfaction as humanity adapted so quickly. It was as though they were born for this gift. But in the shadows, there were those who feared what humanity might become once they truly understood their newfound potential. They feared the possibility that humanity would not remain the peaceful species the Eldari had hoped they would become, but rather something more dangerous, more unpredictable. And as the enhanced humans began to shape the world in their image, the Eldari could not help but wonder whether they had made a grave mistake, whether giving humanity the power to change the course of history was a blessing or a curse. The first signs of trouble came when some enhanced humans began to question the Eldari's motives. They wondered why the Eldari had given them this gift at all. What did they truly want from them? And while some sought peace, others saw an opportunity to use this power for something greater, something far more personal. They began to craft plans to harness this new strength, not just to improve the world, but to take control of it, to shape the future on their own terms. And when the Eldari tried to intervene, it was clear that they were no longer in control, and that humanity's destiny was theirs to define. Months passed, and humanity continued to evolve faster than the Eldari had predicted. What began as simple physical enhancements turned into something far more complex. As humans unlocked deeper layers of their potential, their minds expanded in ways that made them think beyond conventional understanding. Entire fields of science that had once taken centuries to develop were now solved in mere weeks. Technology advanced at an exponential rate. Humans began building machines that not only served them, but seemed to think on their own. The enhancement process didn't just make them smarter, it changed the very way they interacted with the universe. They could read patterns in the chaos and predict the unpredictable. Entire cities were designed from scratch in days. New forms of energy were discovered and harnessed with ease, as if the laws of physics themselves bent to their will. And yet, despite all the benefits, some could not shake the growing sense of unease. It was subtle at first, whispers among the people about what it truly meant to be changed in such a way. Those who had not undergone the enhancement started to feel left behind. They watched with growing fear as the enhanced humans became not just stronger, but almost otherworldly. Their speed and intelligence made them seem distant and unreachable. Entire governments began to worry about the power shift as enhanced leaders took control of industries and countries. It wasn't long before divisions started to form within humanity itself. Factions began to rise among the enhanced. Some wanted to use their gifts To unite the world, others wanted to break free and form new nations of their own, driven by the belief that they were the next step in human evolution, that they no longer needed the old world order, the old system of rules and governments which now seemed weak and outdated. The Eldari watched with concern. As the fractures spread, it was clear that humanity was no longer united under their gift. Instead of fostering peace, the gift had sparked a conflict. The enhanced humans were too powerful to control, too unpredictable to be easily guided. Some began to speak of taking humanity's destiny into their own hands, not just on Earth, but across the stars. They began to talk of expansion, not peace, of taking what they needed and forging an empire that would span the galaxy. The Eldari saw the signs of a power shift. Unlike anything they had ever witnessed, they realized that their mistake was not in giving humanity the gift, but in underestimating the consequences of that gift. Humanity was no longer the simple species they had thought them to be. The humans were becoming a force of nature, a storm that could reshape the galaxy, and while some among them still clung to ideals of peace and cooperation, it was becoming more and more difficult to stop the rise of those who wanted to impose their will on the galaxy in the name of a new order, a new humanity. And as the first few skirmishes broke out among the human factions, it was clear that the Eldari's intervention might not be enough to prevent what was coming. The humans were now at the threshold of a new era, an era of untold power and unimaginable consequences, and no one was certain how this would all unfold. But one thing was certain: humanity was no longer the innocent species it once was, and the Eldari had unknowingly set the stage for a conflict that would shake the galaxy to its core. The cracks that had begun to form in humanity's unity grew wider as time went on. Some humans sought to use their enhancements for peace and harmony, while others believed it was their right to rule and reshape the galaxy in their image. The balance between the two factions was delicate and volatile. The Eldari watched with growing dread as more and more humans began to question the very foundation of their society. The once noble ideal of using the gift for the greater good now seemed like a distant dream. The enhanced humans, who had once been humble in their newfound abilities, now saw themselves as superior to their unmodified brethren. And to the Eldari themselves, they began to organize into powerful factions with one goal in mind: to take control of Earth and beyond. They saw their new strength as a sign that they were destined to leave the galaxy not as peaceful diplomats, but as conquerors. A select few of the most brilliant minds among the enhanced began to design weapons of war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They combined the most advanced technology with their newfound biological enhancements and created machines that could warp the very fabric of reality itself. It was no longer enough to just be stronger or smarter. They sought to dominate not just Earth, but entire star systems, and in their arrogance, they failed to consider the true cost of their ambitions. The Eldari were not blind to this transformation. They understood that humanity was on the brink of something dangerous and unrecognizable, but what they failed to anticipate was the speed with which humanity would adapt to the power they had been given. While the Eldari sent their most skilled diplomats and peacekeepers to Earth, hoping to calm the situation, those humans who had chosen war were already preparing for the next phase of their rise. They gathered their forces in secret, building armies and weapons that could rival even the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. The first sign that the situation had spiraled beyond the Eldari's control came when a group of these enhanced humans launched an attack on one of the Eldari's most important research stations, an outpost situated on a distant moon. They used strategies and tactics so precise and so devastating that it was clear the humans had surpassed the Eldari in their understanding of warfare. The Eldari forces sent reinforcements, but they arrived too late. The station was obliterated in a matter of hours. The weaponry the humans wielded was so advanced that the Eldari couldn't even begin to understand how they had developed it so quickly. It was then that the Eldari realized that their so-called gift had not only granted humanity power, but had also given them the ability to innovate at an impossible rate. The attack sent shockwaves through the galaxy, and in its wake the Eldari saw the true nature of humanity's potential. It was no longer about peace or cooperation. It was about control and domination. Humanity had taken the gift they had been given and shaped it into something the Eldari could not contain, something they could not predict. And now humanity was ready to expand beyond Earth, ready to take the next step. And no one knew how far they would go. The galaxy stood at the edge of a new era, one in which the rules of the old order no longer applied, and the fate of all species hung in the balance. The attack on the Eldari research station marked a turning point for both humanity and the galaxy as a whole. The Eldari had underestimated just how quickly humans would adapt to their new abilities and how far they would push the limits of what was possible. The event sent ripples through the galaxy. Other species, who had watched the humans from a distance, now began to take notice of their rapid rise. Some saw an opportunity to align themselves with the humans, while others began to prepare for conflict. The Eldari were now in full crisis mode. They had hoped that humanity's enhanced intellect would foster peace and prosperity, but it seemed they had only given birth to a new era of ambition and power that threatened to tear apart the fragile order of the universe. A council of the Eldari's highest leaders convened to decide how to handle the situation, but their options were limited. They had no answer for how to contain humanity's explosive growth, no strategy to disarm their newfound military might. Humanity had already proven that they could crush any force the Eldari sent against them. The situation was spiraling out of control, and the galaxy was on the brink of a new and devastating war. The Eldari decided to send a delegation of their most trusted diplomats and peacekeepers to Earth. They hoped that by meeting with humanity's leaders, they could come to some sort of agreement and prevent an all-out conflict. The delegation was received with what seemed to be cooperation at first, but the Eldari quickly realized that humanity's desire for peace was no longer their driving force. The leaders they met with were not the same kind of leaders they had dealt with before. These were enhanced humans who saw the Eldari as weak and outdated. They believed that their gift was not something to be shared, but something to be seized. Humanity had moved beyond the need for the Eldari, and now they saw the galaxy as their rightful domain. The Eldari tried to reason with them, but it became clear that negotiation was impossible. The humans had no interest in diplomacy. They were ready to impose their will on the galaxy, and no amount of persuasion would change their minds. The Eldari diplomats were sent away humiliated and disarmed. Their influence over humanity was broken. In that moment, it became clear that the Eldari no longer controlled their own destiny. The humans had crossed a line, and there was no going back. The war was no longer a question of if, but when. Humanity had begun to prepare in secret, constructing weapons and armies that would rival anything the Eldari had ever seen. Their innovations were unstoppable, and their desire for dominance grew by the day. The rest of the galaxy watched in stunned silence as humanity's factions began to mobilize for a full-scale conflict. While some still hoped for peace, others knew that war was inevitable. The balance of power in the universe had shifted, and now it was time to see who would emerge victorious. The question was no longer whether humanity could be stopped, but whether the galaxy could survive their rise. The first true demonstration of humanity's new power came when they revealed the ultimate weapon, something that was unlike anything the Eldari had ever encountered. The weapon was not merely a tool of destruction. It was a fusion of humanity's enhanced biology with the most advanced artificial intelligence and quantum mechanics. It was capable of hacking into any system across the galaxy, disrupting communications, controlling machines, and even bending the laws of reality itself. At first, the Eldari believed it was a rumor, just another show of arrogance by the humans. But when they saw the weapon in action, they realized the truth. Humanity had created something they could not control or predict. The weapon was activated on a small scale during a covert operation. The humans infiltrated an entire Eldari fleet, not with brute force, but by subtly manipulating the very systems that controlled their ships. Within minutes, the fleet was disabled with no physical damage done at all. The Eldari couldn't even pinpoint how it had happened. The weapon had taken control of the fleet's systems and rendered them useless. And that was just the beginning. Humanity had only just scratched the surface of what this weapon could do. The weapon's true potential lay in its ability to manipulate reality itself, to distort time and space in ways that seemed impossible. Entire star systems were vulnerable to its power. The Eldari could no longer stand idly by and watch as humanity's weapon threatened to unravel the fabric of the galaxy itself. They knew they had to act fast, But their response was slower than they anticipated. As they scrambled to understand what they were up against, it became clear that the Eldari were no longer the superior race they had once been. The weapon was more than just a tool. It was a symbol of humanity's ingenuity and determination. The galaxy had always viewed humanity as primitive and weak, but the humans had risen above that perception. They had not only embraced their gift, they had taken it further than anyone had imagined. And now they were ready to use it to reshape everything. The Eldari's attempts to launch countermeasures only made things worse. Their once impenetrable technology was now vulnerable to the weapon's manipulations. Humanity began to disable entire fleets of Eldari ships and installations across the galaxy with shocking ease. Each victory made the humans bolder. They began to strike at the very heart of the Eldari's most protected assets, and the galaxy watched as the balance of power shifted before their eyes. The Eldari realized that they were no longer in control. The humans had mastered the art of war in ways that defied all logic. They were capable of bending the rules of physics and rewriting the very systems that held the galaxy together. The ultimate weapon was a reflection of the humans themselves, unpredictable, relentless, and adaptable. With each passing day, humanity grew stronger and more dangerous as they began to forge alliances with other species who recognized their power and feared what would happen if they stood against them. But for every ally they gained, there were those who saw humanity as a threat too great to ignore. The galaxy was in turmoil, and the question was no longer whether humanity would dominate the galaxy, but how the galaxy would survive their rise. As humanity's weapon continued to devastate the Eldari and other galactic civilizations, the true scope of their potential became clearer. With each passing day, entire fleets were decimated without a single shot fired. Entire systems fell into disarray as their control systems were hijacked and turned against them. Humanity's influence spread like wildfire as they offered their gift to those who would align with them. And the galaxy began to shift from a place of uneasy peace to one of total uncertainty. The once proud Eldari civilization now found themselves fractured, their political structure crumbling as their greatest weapon against humanity seemed completely ineffective. The humans had not only outsmarted them, but had surpassed their wildest expectations. The galaxy's other species watched in fear and awe the rise of this new power. Some tried to bargain with the humans, offering alliances or resources in exchange for protection. Others remained hostile and prepared to fight for survival. But no one could ignore the fact that humanity had become a force that could no longer be ignored. The Eldari's diplomatic efforts were futile. They sent envoys to Earth to try and negotiate, but those efforts were rejected. Humanity no longer cared about diplomacy or coexistence. They saw the galaxy as theirs for the taking, and nothing could stand in their way. The sheer scope of their power was incomprehensible to those who had not witnessed it firsthand. The weapon humanity wielded was more than a military asset. It was a tool of total domination. They could alter the course of history, rewrite the rules of space and time, and even bend the fabric of reality itself. And yet, despite the chaos they were causing, humanity's internal divisions continued to grow. Some factions still believed in using their power for peace and prosperity, while others saw this as an opportunity to expand their control over the galaxy. No one could predict how things would unfold. The galaxy was teetering on the brink of an all-out war with humanity at its center. But it wasn't just the Eldari who feared humanity's rise. The other species began to mobilize, as well as they saw what was happening to the galaxy, and knew that they too were vulnerable to humanity's might. Alliances began to form in secret as the galaxy's leaders scrambled to prepare for what was coming. No one knew who would rise as the true power in the galaxy, but the realization was setting in that humanity was already more than a match for anyone who stood against them. It was no longer a question of whether the galaxy could survive humanity's rise, but how many civilizations would survive in the wake of their expansion. Humanity's dominance had reached a tipping point, and no one could stop them now. The humans had already become an unstoppable force, not through sheer brutality, but through their intelligence, adaptability, and unyielding ambition. They were no longer the underdogs of the galaxy. They were the new rulers, and the old powers could only watch as their world was reshaped before their eyes. What had started as a gift had become a weapon of unimaginable power, and now humanity was ready to claim what was rightfully theirs to forge a new future in the galaxy, one that would be written in their image. The galaxy would never be the same again, and as humanity continued to push forward, it was clear that the only question left was who would stand in their way. The final confrontation was inevitable. Humanity had risen to power faster than anyone could have imagined, and now the galaxy's old powers were forced to confront the reality of their situation. The Eldari, who had once ruled with unchallenged dominance, now found themselves on the defensive, scrambling to maintain what little influence they had left. The war that had long been brewing finally erupted as humanity launched their full-scale assault across the galaxy. Fleets of their most advanced ships ravaged entire systems, while the weapon humanity had created tore apart the very fabric of reality itself. In a wave of destruction and reconfiguration, it was a chaos that the galaxy had never seen before. As worlds and stars buckled under the weight of humanity's power, no one was safe. Even the Eldari, who had once thought themselves immune to such devastation, were helpless against humanity's might. And yet there was still one glimmer of hope for those who fought against humanity's rise: a small group of rebels who had managed to form an alliance of disparate species and civilizations. Their goal was simple: to stop the spread of humanity's rule before it was too late. They knew the fight was hopeless, but they had no choice. The future of the galaxy rested on their shoulders. The final battle took place in the heart of Eldari space, the Eldari's last bastion of strength, the site of their most important research and military installations. Humanity's fleets descended on the system like a swarm of locusts, overwhelming all resistance in their path. Their ultimate weapon was unleashed in full force, and the devastation was unlike anything the galaxy had ever experienced. Entire planets were rendered uninhabitable, entire fleets turned to ash in moments. The combined forces of the galaxy's resistance stood little chance against humanity's overwhelming might, and yet they fought on, desperate to stave off the inevitable. Humanity's military tactics were flawless, each move calculated with precision, each strike devastatingly effective. They did not simply conquer systems, they restructured them, rewrote their very essence, in ways that no one had ever thought possible. And as the final battle raged on, the resistance began to falter. There was no more hope, no more escape. Humanity's victory was all but assured, but even as they moved to claim their prize, a final twist came from an unexpected source. Humanity's own leaders began to question their actions. The very factions that had driven humanity to this point now began to fracture as some saw the consequences of their ambition, and others still sought to expand even further. Some began to fear that their new power might lead to their own destruction, that they had become what they had once feared, the very thing they had fought to escape: the rise of a new order that would lead to their own downfall. Divisions among humanity threatened to undermine their victory, and in the final moments of the battle, the question was raised not of whether humanity would rule the galaxy, but of whether they could even control themselves. And as the last of the resistance fell, the galaxy stood on the edge of an uncertain future. Humanity had proven its power and dominance, but now the question was whether they would build a new era of peace or continue their march toward an ever-expanding empire, one that could ultimately consume itself in the process. As the dust settled across the galaxy and the final resistance forces were defeated, humanity stood victorious, but a strange silence had fallen over the battlefields. The sounds of conflict had died away, but the tension lingered. Humanity had conquered the galaxy, but now the true challenge awaited them. The factions within humanity were no longer united in their ambition. Some wanted peace, some wanted to consolidate power and spread even further. Others feared that their victory would become a new kind of prison. They had gained everything they sought, but at what cost? As they looked across the galaxy, there was no denying the magnitude of their transformation. The humans, who had once been a fragile species on the brink of extinction, were now the most powerful force in the universe. They controlled the stars, the systems, the resources, but they no longer knew what to do with it. All those who had long sought to dominate began to question if their power was really a blessing or a curse. Would they become the very thing they had fought against? Would they be enslaved by their own ambition? It was a strange new world for them. They had the power to rewrite reality, to shape the future, but no clear idea of what that future should look like, and the leaders of humanity knew that the galaxy could not stay united forever. As they looked at the countless worlds they had subdued, they realized that ruling by force alone could never bring peace. The very weapon they had created to secure their dominance was now their greatest threat. It was not just a tool of destruction, but a symbol of their hubris. The galaxy was in turmoil. And yet, even as humanity stood at the pinnacle of power, they were divided at their core. Some factions pushed for totalitarian control, seeking to impose a single order across the stars, while others desired a more decentralized system that would allow for greater autonomy and freedom. No one knew which direction they would choose. The stakes were higher than ever as each leader sought to reshape humanity's destiny. The galaxy was teetering on the edge of a precipice, and in those quiet moments, far from the war-torn systems and the conquered worlds, there was a realization that perhaps the real test of humanity had only just begun. They had proven their power, they had claimed the stars, but now they needed to decide what kind of future they would build, not just for themselves, but for all the species they had once looked down upon. Could they foster true peace, or would they continue to conquer and expand until there was nothing left to conquer and nothing left to destroy? As the human factions clashed over their future, the galaxy watched with a mixture of hope and fear. It was clear that the old powers, like the Eldari, were gone. Their reign had ended, but the new order was still forming, and whether that order would bring light or darkness was unknown. Humanity's ultimate test had come. They were no longer a species in the shadows, but rulers of the galaxy, and the choices they made now would echo through eternity. The ultimate weapon had been their gift and their curse, and now they had to decide whether they would use it to build a new beginning or to erase everything in their quest for eternal dominance. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what kind of rulers humanity would choose to become.